course.
Hi, welcome to Niche Sports. And today we have someone joining us who's very special. I've known him for a long time. And it's not someone who plays the sport, but he's a guiding light for all sportsmen. Because the game that you play is not just about your own skills, your physical skills, and what you do on the field or your training, but also right here. And in these challenging times, his guidance is crucial to them as it has been always. So, Badri Narayan joins me all the way from the United States of America. He's a mental conditioning coach, a psychologist, a sports psychologist, and he can definitely tell us a lot of things about how athletes are preparing or taking care of themselves in these times, and what even some people like us can do, apply the same techniques and get through these challenging times, as we call them, lockdowns. So Badri, I hope you're doing very well. How has the lockdown been for you?
All right. Firstly, thank you, Nish. Looking forward to this whole talk with you. It's been a tough journey for many. Obviously, it's like the whole lockdown has had its impact, and I feel like we are coming through it now. We're taking it all in and then coming out stronger for sure. But it has definitely, I would be lying if it hasn't taken a toll on many people, athletes, even doctors, your people who are going through this challenge. But if you had asked me the same question like 4 months ago, we didn't know what we were getting into. And now I think we have come a long way. And so now we have processes and methods about how we are actually dealing with the problem. But we are definitely, like anything, we are coming out stronger. So I would say I'm stronger now.
It's quite interesting that you say that, because we didn't know about this 4 5 months ago, and lockdowns as such have brought out a lot of mental well-being issues for a lot of people. How have sportsmen been affected by this, and what has been their perspective, and how have they been dealing with this? Because it's not just about playing a sport now, it's about maybe general life, staying at home, not going out, not meeting your friends, or even in some cases your loved ones. It is quite difficult.
Yeah, it is. Like it's coming from India, we have seen so many diseases like this. You have plague, you have SARS, and we have always, as a country in India, we have always come out stronger. We kind of like had this tolerance thing. Oh, we face it and then we move on. We don't make a big hush about it. In the US here, like when 1918, when this pandemic struck, it was like a different situation for many. And that time, the first time, and it took 3 years, and nobody had a clue about what the disease was, and they just it was crazy mayhem because they're not prepared for something like that. And here, right now, when this thing came, it felt like, oh, it's gonna be another plague-like situation or SARS, and we'll be all okay. But then this was like an invisible enemy, and nobody knew what was happening. And even though we had some great experts come and warn about it, so it got dismissed. All the experts, science experts, just come and warn and scare us, and this is just going to go away in the summer and all that. But when sportsmen, they saw it, the same thing. Like anybody else, all my athletes or people that I work with, and be it tennis, cricket, or anybody, they all felt it. Okay, yeah. So what is going to happen? How are we going to solve this? They started off with blocking a few weeks, so like, okay, let's just kind of stay indoors. But it the first month was okay. Like, the first couple of weeks were like, okay, let's get through this and work through this. The second set of weeks, then it started like starting to take its toll. Like they're like, this is getting a bit scary now. And then tournaments are getting stopped, and then they said, okay, this whole year is gone. Stanford sent out a study saying that you guys, I think 18 months is what we're looking at. Like, wow, 18 months. It's 18 months of nothing. Then that's when, because they're coming from they're not like random people coming and telling you, right? So all the sportsmen, when they heard that, they're like, is this going to happen? Anxiety sets in. And okay, and you had the tournaments complete. The first half of the tournaments are all done, and then athletes are building up for the next set, and then this is a block, and they are not able to carry forward the momentum from the past, right? And so all these things started having started taking its toll. And I think it's for athletes even more, because it's a very short span in sport, right? You're looking at 10 15 years, and if you say like losing a month feels like a year, losing this much is a big deal. And it's not like you walk in and oh, you're going to show up and all of a sudden you're going to play at your best. It's not easy because there's so many things, higher level of competition. You build up for excellence, and then you say like, okay, stop, and then we'll start when everybody else. And that's been the hardest challenge. Yeah.
There have been a lot of downtimes that athletes have, say in between seasons. Like even in cricket, we see two series may be spaced out, and there is a couple of months between them. Or even in tennis, when there is a gap in the tour, and it's quite normal for athletes to go and train. But right now, a lot of them can't even do that. So how difficult is that for them to manage that mentally? That look, fine, I've got this break, but I can't even go to train. I don't know how long it's going to be away from the field. So that aspect, how difficult is that to deal with for an athlete?
Huge. It's very huge because again, it's like, they are coming in to, when they're working on their mental muscles, they're working on, okay, for their mental performance. It's not just a skill set, right? They're working on their skill set, they're working on their fitness, they're working on, recovery. And, if athletes are going through some rehab and they're coming back from injury, that's an even crazier thing. Guys coming back from injury and they are looking forward to the rest of the season. And then they're told, well, there's nothing going to go on. And then it becomes so hard for them to kind of what do you call it, inspire, motivate themselves, because it takes a toll from a, like, again, time, how long is this going to be, of how long this is going to take. And when that happens, it becomes very they lose their, what do you call it, their zing to work. So what, even if I work on this, I'm not going to be, even if I work mentally or visually and kind of work on my visualization, work on my where I'm going to be, or just meditate, all these things, right? All these are great. Back of the mind is, okay, I'm doing it, but there's reality is like, there isn't any competition. I'm stuck indoors,
Yeah.
or I can't go out and train. So what am I actually working on? That's the question, right? So they feel like, okay, I can kind of, so even if I work on this is going to really help, and it's a natural question for anybody, because once, when competition is happening, you have other guys, you see the other guys, okay, that guy is so stronger now mentally than what he used to be. And you're fighting that battle also. And now you see, like, in a way, it's like everybody's even, but then still, like, okay, you feel like I built so much, and he didn't do anything, and now I got to like start over again. And there's nothing for me to prove, and there's nothing for me to prove against. That is the hardest part. And they so the first thing is, obviously, as from my side, I let the athlete kind of express himself out, whatever he's going through, like anything. I only say is like, don't hold anything back, just let it out, see what is going on within you, be open about it, be vulnerable about it. This, because this is a time for you to kind of express what. Let's not think, okay, this will be, I don't want to talk about this to Balti right now, maybe not a big deal, or I might look bad, these kind of things. So I just basically said, just let it all out. So once that comes out of your system, there's a sense of acceptance coming into it, and when that acceptance starts coming in, then it's not like a one day thing. It's like, I'll feel good, have a session, and then I give some steps to do. Then it's that constant repetition. I said, now is a time to build on patience, build on working on trying to stay still more. When these doubts and these thoughts about the future, anxiety about the future comes in, is to kind of be firstly in acceptance, alignment with that, and then try to reconnect back to the present moment. This is what we've been trying to do a lot, so that it's not easy, because there's in my stuff, in my trainings, there's always been a purpose behind it. Okay, this is where we're heading towards. Here, what I am, like I said, even I have to reinvent myself here. Here we're trying to bring them back to, okay, yeah, this is worry, but yeah, let me come back to the note, come back to the note. It's not easy, but that is the only sensible, long-standing solution to it, if that makes sense.
It does. And because it is interesting, because it almost answers my next question, but I'm going to put it out there anyways. Like the change in approach to mental conditioning in sports for sports psychologists and players. So this is the main change that you see, that you're looking at this problem in a sense that let's take it as an uncertainty, but here's what we can do. It's a different type of uncertainty, as you just mentioned.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And yeah, it is a different kind of uncertainty for the reason that we all have to, what do you call it? I call it a neural reset within. It's not just the athlete. It's also the psychologist. When this was happening, we as mind coaches, so we've always got together in forums and come up with some innovative ways to like deal with this, because it's not just performance psychology anymore.
Hmm.
This is about life psychology. This is about visiting our own priorities. It's not like, okay, I had a bad day, so I don't know what to do with this. Those kind of things we have all gone through. We know exactly what to do. Here we are like, okay, if I as a psychologist am thinking about it as, okay, what, this completely is shifting my own mindset. Imagine what it's doing to the athlete who's right out there. And so we have to reinvent ourselves too in how we are approaching it, and not just say, hey, do this. So we got to take it a lot more in even, and also bring that. It's almost like a Viktor Frankl's approach, right? When he was in the concentration camp.
Yes.
This is not as bad as that,
Yeah.
but it's just the whole bringing a meaning into that torture that he was going through, and to keep that alive. So we want to hear the purpose is to, like, now standing still is going to be the best move that I can ever make, but I need to do that with conviction. I need to do that with total presence, and not have that internal negativity about it. And so that's and we come up with methods and techniques to help each athlete do that, and each one is different. And that has been the biggest challenge. And honestly speaking, with the athletes who have been doing it right now over the last 3-4 months, um, and they will, after this thing ends, however long it takes, they will come back. I mean, not just better performers, but in reality, as even from a human consciousness standpoint, the way, all the things that they assumed as granted and everything, they have become even more grateful, even more humble in their approach to things. I think it just made them even better human beings. So I think, yeah, I wouldn't, I would have, it would have been hard to say this 2-3 months ago, but I think now it's a complete revamp in perspective. Changes in behavior have happened, and they are willing to throw themselves in even more, as odd as it might sound. So I think it's not been a easy journey, but I see light at the end of the tunnel here, and I think even better players. So
You just mentioned Viktor Frankl's book, and the biggest takeaway that a lot of people have from it, and even I read it last month, is that in any situation that you are, you've got the ability, or rather the choice of feeling better. You've got the choice to feel whatever you want to. And coming from someone who went through those adversities, which we can't even imagine or can't even begin
yeah,
to describe, it's a wonderful, wonderful perspective. It does change our views, but then how do you put that into practice for your athletes? Because I know it is. I mean, we cannot compare the two situations, anyways. But even
mhm.
then, how do you take that learning from man's search for meaning and put it into this scenario?
Yeah. See, it's always about, when we think that, okay, my suffering is the highest, then you suddenly see somebody else and they're like, they can't even buy bread for themselves, right?
Yeah.
You suddenly look at that and be like, oh gosh, man, I mean, this guy can't even eat. At least I have food in my plate. I know I hate to use a comparison perspective, but it's just that you have to find a way to convince your mind to kind of take those instances. Not that you are having pleasure in seeing somebody else suffer, or even reading through their biographies and stuff like that. But what it does is, like, okay, somebody has gone through it. So you say my suffering is the worst, but you see somebody has gone through this even 10 times worse, and are able to gain some put that life. And he may be the only guy who have done it. He might have seen 100 people just commit suicide or die, but he was one guy who did it. So that one guy becomes an example for you. So when once they start, like I said, here what happened was, the athletes wanted to conquer this whole uncertainty, this anxiety. So that's the first step. It's not like, okay, they start and become, oh my God, I'm feeling bad about this whole thing. They really wanted to kind of see, what can I do? One thing was, they knew that all of them are starting at zero. All athletes are going to be at zero right now because nobody's training. So, which is okay. But the other side is like, okay, how am I truly going to, like, after the first month of where dealing with anxiety and all that and getting through these methods, okay, I've got this done now. I know that this problem is kind of something that I have to deal with, but how can I literally take it to the next level? And I think from that front, it really helped to kind of like, okay, that the student is ready, on that front. So then when we give them perspective, hey, these are the perspective, have a look at this, have a look at, these are excerpts that we give them from, for them to read through. And then I just let them absorb the pain, because this is sport performance, and but it's not what they are going through, right? So once that gets sucked in, so they feel like, okay, I can face this. So how am I going to take the lesson from there, from what somebody like Viktor Frankl go through, or anybody who's taken the road less traveled? What can I take from that, and how can I bring it? We also looked at, athletes who have, become paralyzed, all kinds of examples to kind of like, give them perspective. How can I come out of this strong? So they want that essence stays. When the essence stays, and then and they've been with me long enough now on that front. So that was what we told them to reflect more on. Read what do you see about this particular story? What are the things that you are, because this whole thing is not about performance right now, because there's no opportunity to go and show your performance anywhere right now. So this whole thing is about a change in your consciousness as an athlete, as a human being more. And that's what we wanted to, this is something that we normally don't do, being performance psychologists, right? But this is something is in need. When I said reinvent by myself, we were contemplating, okay, should this come in? Is this coming under psychiatry? Is this coming under life coaching? But we said at the end of it, it's a sportman. He has to figure this piece out. So once we got our things sorted out, we started imbibing that into our athletes. And then once they start gaining their sense, okay, in this adversity that I faced last time, maybe this is what I need to do. Maybe suck it in. Maybe go deeper into this. And each one brought in a different perspective. Again, they're tying it to performance. Okay, from this I saw he practiced. He was doing journal writing. Okay, let me write more. Let me do a lot of journaling about what I'm going through on a daily basis. Then you have another athlete saying, well, I saw, I could feel the pain, and my pain is nothing. So he kind of said, I'm not going to complain about this anymore. I'm going to do what it takes. So each one, that's the first step that they, not me forcing it, but they needing to realize that, okay, now I got to like attack this problem. And once that became clear, honestly, it wasn't that hard, knowing them, but it had to come from them, right? Because if I keep saying, hey, you need to do this, do that, do this, then as such they are confused and in a different state. This will be the last thing that I would want to do them. So we gave them perspectives like biopics and things like that really helped them to kind of take it in. Once that became, then I started giving, okay, maybe in your training tomorrow you could do this. And then because they would always practice against the wall or have some sort of fitness training sessions going on where we try to like bring in all these. They do a lot of visualization, we talked a lot about adversity based situations be it on the tennis court, be it on the cricket field. See how they respond to things like that and work on, because they know the visualization techniques. So we brought in more, I wouldn't say it hits with more pain, but more simulation of higher challenges for them. And and they would come back with, I could tell that they were doing it a lot sincerely, because just based on, of course, sometimes your experience, but also based on what kind of response they were giving me, what was their challenge they were going through when they were doing the visualization. And so, it's come a long way. And I think now when they're able to do this in a setting which is not exactly what they would like to, it's once things get better, or once we start seeing more practices and out there, it's going to be even more stronger.
I don't even have to ask you my next question because you sort of just incorporate it. And what I wanted to point out is that a lot of people are going through this change in consciousness. And you also said that it has to come from within, and it has for a lot of athletes. But having known them as a person, I'm not talking about knowing them as a sports psychologist or a mental conditioning coach, but one on one, just as maybe I know you, or I know you as Badri and Badri knows me as Nishad, not as what we are in our professional roles. But that change in personality, how much have you seen that in a sportsman? Maybe becoming a little more humble, not saying that they weren't, but a little more humble, a little more
Yeah,
grateful. How much have you seen that in sportsmen?
huge, right? I mean, that's been a biggest change. Firstly, what happens? Something gets taken away from you. Like for example, some of them would have nailed some big contracts, and some of them are going into the next level. And there's like you have companies coming and approaching them and, hey, this is what we want to do for you, and all that. So that comes to a standstill. So when that gets taken away, first thing, because then what I see, you work for it, so you deserve it, but it's not going to happen right now. So they become so there's that, I wouldn't say air, like, okay, what, I'm moving high and I'm reaching up to this level now. And so there's that, and then suddenly that stopped. It's not like it's taken, it just stopped for for the right obvious reasons now. So that initially it's like this, you start off with denial and fighting it and all that, and then you cannot do anything about it because you see other athletes going through the same thing. It's not just him alone. And that suddenly initially starts with being more grumpy about it or being more, and then slowly the acceptance starts coming in. And once the acceptance done, and they start, I mean, you have to deal with it. You can't run away from it. These guys are sports guys. They are not going to be like, you can't achieve by sitting around and doing nothing. Once that, and then once that thing started to like mellow down, and once they would, and then they are kind of ready. They want to face this problem. They've done it. It's not, and they've done it in the past in performance, right? So this is a new challenge. And then when the ideas of, okay, going through these biopics, these tough adversity moments, different guys going there, once they start reading through that, and then it starts sinking in. Initially they found it hard to understand, but then once it's sunk in and they start adding their perspective to it, and it's just the I would say the first, living out the first 4 weeks where they are like understanding the whole thing. I think by the sixth, seventh week, within the first couple of months, I started seeing big changes. I started seeing them talk differently. Also, even the things like which we would call like, okay, oh, it's just, this is a fruity conversation, or we see something on television and then oh, they're making it sound so emotional, but in reality it's like they don't like the Oprah Winfrey kind of thing, so they don't like the whole uh, this larger than life kind of thing. They don't like, but then they started talking about it. It's very, and it's actually a great perspective to suddenly see that it doesn't matter what level of play they were, but it was just that their perspective, they became somehow in a weird way became larger than life in their own way, but in a good sense, not like in an egoistic thing. They're like, there's more to this, and they started being great for every little thing that they were going through. And I saw a lot of thank you notes, which were nobody expects, but they almost felt, okay, in this time, these are the people that I'm around with, be it their family and us as support and all that. It's just that they become even more closer than before. So those are like big changes, which I think will not just as a coach and a coachee relationship, but more like more of a more of a guiding mentor sort of relationship. At the same time, it was became even more brotherly. So those are the changes that I've been seeing, and I would like it to continue like that. but but just that they get to show a different side of them. It's going to help them not just in sport, but also in life as a whole.
We often talk about surrender. Surrender yourself to the situation when you're in sport. And sometimes, if you've done everything right, and there are things that are out of your control. Say a batsman is playing, he's prepared well, scored an X amount of runs. He doesn't have control over the next delivery, only over his response. And that goes likewise for tennis players or football players. In this time of uncertainty, again, that surrender aspect, how do sportsmen deal with that? just surrender to this situation, let it flow, let it happen. Is that the
Uh-huh.
toughest surrender they've had to do, and how does that hold them instead going ahead?
Yeah, I think yeah, this whole thing is comes down to the like acceptance, right? This whole there are two ways of looking at acceptance. Acceptance is like, okay, I can't do anything about it, and so it's like a batsman scoring well, and then he gets dropped for whatever reason, or a tennis player playing his absolute best and losing, and you have situations like that, and so I mean, acceptance of okay, of just the situation as it is, and or they not even accept it, they just go, what, today I lost, and just they go in and shut off their rooms, and then come back the next day and all that. But this one is not just acceptance alone, right? In this be it in this crisis, and or be it even in when they're playing, the surrender part is of course you're doing all your work, you're doing everything within your control, be it your physical training, your mental training, your skills training, your recovery, rehab, everything, just kind of your whole preparation, your processes and everything. um, and once you've done that entirely, and not, I mean, of course you got to like get every one of those crossed, because if you don't, it'll be pointed out, and after that point it doesn't make sense about the surrender part, because you didn't do your whole thing. So you shouldn't be surprised if you failed, or didn't get picked for a team, or just lost a match. It could be anything. But here, all this is done. The surrender is something to the we talked about the change of consciousness part, right? The surrender to that part of you, which starts off with obviously a lot of meditation. So it's almost like we had a lot of affirmations, but okay, I could do all this, and still nothing could shape out of this. Not like you want to sound negative, but I bring acceptance to that too. The whole thing is like we want to um, not we don't want anything from the situation to bring out, oh, I did this and still didn't happen, have a dissatisfaction. So our goal was to make it a very comprehensive surrender without coming out of it and not have some leakage. Oh, I did, but then you might tell me something and later still regret about it. So that was one of our core affirmations that we wanted our athletes and everybody to do, is to like, because this is that kind of situation. Like, I even in my end, so I'm telling this to you, and you're going to do everything, and this outcome may or may not be what, say, I want or what you want, but we still have to surrender to that part also. So I surrender that even if I say this and if this one doesn't work, I'm still okay with it, because we want that to be completely from within. And that is the hardest part. It's not an easy thing, because everything is driven by, even when you're seeking enlightenment is a result, or enlightenment is, say, you want to lose your ego or anything. Right? It's not just like a walk in the park. It Even the last moment when you say that I'm enlightened, it's like there's still an ego that still says it, who knows, so I think it's like a complete comprehensive letting go. And that, in the form of we try to do a lot in the form of affirmations, but at the same time we want the athlete to kind of embody that as much as he can. And I think that's again another unique perspective that has come about in this journey, not from obviously from a pandemic standpoint, but also from as a sportsman, like, okay, compared to that and what people are losing, this is nothing. So even if I lose on this part, I'm okay. Just truly feeling it within. And that it's like it's kind of like a second innings, right? We always, in India, there was a history of when we played, we always are performing great in our second innings, but the first innings we'll be struggling, because there's that sense of fear that goes away, and we go and just let loose, and then you're performing at your best. That's in a way a form of surrender. There's nothing to lose. So this is kind of similar, where you are, okay, you have accepted the worst possible thing and surrendered even then it frees up the soul within you, and there's more deep trust. So I think that has become, I would say, the 2.0 of psychology now, because that has freed them up even more, and not just to sport, but also to life. So I think, it's a tough question to answer in one go, but
Yeah.
are you getting the gist of it? It's kind of like you are surrendering from a sport perspective, but also surrendering from an egoic perspective. And it's very hard for everybody to accept that. But I mean, in this situation, what is happening? There are a lot of possibilities for new things to emerge. So we are all learning in this process.
And how different is the, say, learning for a person playing a team sport and a person playing an individual sport? Like a cricket player, the processes you would have used for a cricket player are different from that of a tennis player. But since everyone's in the same storm at the moment, how
Mhm.
different are those learnings in context of what you just told me about the surrender and even the other aspects?
It's actually pretty small. I've tried to never keep it as different because see, again, in tennis it's two players, but you're still playing the ball. Cricket, it's the bowler and the batsman. Still, if it's a bowler, that he's trying to get the batsman out, and vice versa. It's still an individual battle of some kind, right? So, a batsman could have had, say, a short ball weakness, or weakness of the off stump, all these things, and they work on it. They work on the technique part of it. They work on leaving and all that, and then they and of course the past of getting out to a particular bowler will be there when they get on, no matter how hard you train. There's one instance where I remember, was it Sachin in against was it against New Zealand, where he was getting bowled from the of the incoming deliveries, right? And then he goes back to the net, works super hard, and he's like works 6 hours, and he's the greatest batsman of all time at his age, and when he was going through all the other challenges from outside, still put in the hours and everything. And then he said, like, even when he came in, and then somehow he for a brief moment lost his temper on something when he got out again to an incoming ball. But that's when he said, like, you could do everything possible in control, and be super prepared, and still have that thing that can happen. But no matter what happens, the that surrender of your training and everything that you do, um, that can never be counted off, even if this result happens. So that's coming from a batsman like who scored 100 centuries, and he knows, and he not like he hates getting out like that, but it's just that it showed people telling him, but he still went ahead, did the work, and still happened. And so that is, so when you see that, you can say, oh man, he did all that and still got out. We can say that from a very, but from a as a person, like what I'm saying, looking at is like, okay, I went there, I got out, but did I do everything that I was asked of me to do? Yes. Did I train? Did I, visualize? Yes. All that, everything. And I still got it. Yeah. So, but I'm still okay with it. And that comes from a deeper connection to something within. And that's the ultimate thing. Like if you look at somebody like Shikhar or anyone, he would have gone through some crazy tough times, but he always was a guy who had this. He would use the flute. He would do things that he made sure that nothing on his side is changed. He never over thinks about anything, and that's what I've always liked about him. Like he has the different things people talk about and all that, but he's, yeah, you can call him the true governor. He had that. You can call him the swag, but deep inside, he was surrendered to something of a different kind, and he's always in that state. He tries to make sure that no matter what happens, I get back to that state, and because his best have come out of that state, and if he's failed, well, again, he doesn't want to, like, okay, doesn't mean that I got to change my entire nature about it. So he is surrendered. He does all the work. He does everything possible. And same applies to all my tennis players. It's like, but then there's always that element of no matter what the uncertainty outside, I still would continue with my processes and everything. And now the added element of this is even more. And so because you are grateful for just playing now. So that's a very unique form of surrender that we are seeing now. But how it's going to shape up when cricket actually begins again or tennis begins again, that'll be interesting to see. But as far as from a training standpoint, I think I never thought like something like that would have a complete practical presence in in performance psychology. But it's, like I said, it's a new form of training that's come in on that front. So I'm looking forward to that as to how it actually shapes up. But athletes are putting in the work.
And you just spoke about gratitude, just the opportunity that you're getting to play a sport that millions of others who can only dream of doing. And whenever sports begin, full flow. I know there are a few tournaments that are starting here and there, but when it does begin in full flow and all the athletes do get back onto the park, what's the kind of technique that you will tell them to deal with the situation, just getting back to the park, because it's again a restart? And in that sense as well, there will be a lot of happiness. So how does one keep that in check and just focus on the job at hand?
see, that's the thing. That's why it's like, there's once, let me give a quick example of NBA. There was once a pay dispute in NBA many years ago. So 4 months, 5 months, it was like no training. And then, I mean, pretty much no sport till the pay dispute got over. I mean, just kind of talking about how great players operate and how normal players operate. So it was like complete, there was no play. And then everybody's thinking, oh, let me just get started when the season gets started, By the time this all happened, all of a sudden they said, okay, the pay dispute is over. We are starting next month. And you have like, out of say 11 players, say 11, 7 are out of shape and 2 are so. One is like, comes in, scores a 50 plus points in the first game. And they have not played for 5 months, 6 months, right? And then they asked him, like, dude, you just work. What does that got to do with, all these other things? Yeah, your fitness is there. You got the hoop. You got to work on all these things. The reason I bring that up is like, the work ethic. So what these guys are doing right now, is still the same. It's just that, okay, yeah, it's not the same exact setting, but in terms of your fitness, in terms of shadow techniques that you could do, in terms of like whatever things that you can do within knock around, just anything on that from tie a ball, hit against it, anything. But to bring that same level of intensity to it, that those things never change, because it's not like, okay, you just visualize and you're not doing anything about it. I think that remains the same. So none of my athletes so far in all the sports that I'm associated are slacking away on that one. They are still doing, it's not the same, but they're still doing everything that they possibly can. Day one, when everything does begin, is to obviously you have to accept that, okay, everything is coming back after a long time. So there will be like, you got to be thankful for the whole thing to be back. Obviously the energy of like wanting to go out there and perform, those things are huge things. Those are like all, like, let's say fuel, like adding fuel, right? That those things will, I just told them, let that all come in, because it's only going to help you again. That just don't think about, I mean, and honestly right now I don't see any of the guys thinking about, okay, how well they're going to perform, what's going to happen, and all that stuff. No, I know they just want to, it's a simple, like how when you started playing when you're young, we started playing sport just for that love of the game. Okay, just knocking the ball, just, or hitting that forehand, and that's all we played. We like the sound of the ball. And I think that's what it's coming down to. Like, it's almost taking them back to how it felt like for hitting a ball. And I know you don't want this to come in such bad in a pandemic form of way, but that's kind of what they are seeing. Like, it's like they're looking forward to it, and not one of them have talked about how well they're going to, like, okay, hope I get picked, or none of that. It's just more like day one, we just said, let whatever feelings, emotions come, take it in, accept all the good stuff from it, and go out there and just let loose. And when you're talking carefully, just again focus. Everything is just going to be the same. But the added thing of, like, every time you start questioning and you're getting used to things, and start, just remember what happened like 3-4 months ago. And the moment you start thinking that, never lose that, never forget that. And that gives you, okay. And then immediately, because that's what, whenever a crisis like this happens, it's almost like you go back and see what was going through at that point, and how much you were struggling and itching to come back. And when you see it, you're getting beaten, or when you're not maybe not playing as well as you want to, just go back there, just kind of rethink that. Never let go of that feeling, so that you, again, the want to make correction, and corrections happen and everything without you becoming judgmental of yourself. So it's, yeah, more greater gratitude. I think the processes don't change. Just be, never forget what has happened here. Yeah, that's kind of how we are looking at it. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting as to once the action begins.
It will be really interesting, and we just can't wait for the action to begin, actually, in whatever small way. I mean, with the football league starting in Europe, although I'm not a big club football fan, I've been watching just for the sake of live sport and just feeling a bit of normality. But Badri, to end this, is there anything that you'd like to add? But I must say, you have pretty much covered everything. A lot of the questions I didn't even have to ask, but is there something else you'd like to add as a message, or something that, even we as non-sports persons can follow in this time?
Yeah, I think, it's, again, I'm sure you're doing a lot of these, just kind of being, like I said, being more like, even I see some of your posts where you are like, okay, 1 year ago this happened, you've been, and then you're not like, oh, sad about it. You're more like grateful for that, as what happened last year. It could be a simple thing as just walking on, which that was considered normal, right? Going and standing in a stadium and looking around, and then and now you look at it. Can I even actually do that now? Can I even go in and touch a chair
Yeah.
without sanitizing myself? So yeah. So just think of all these things. All these things that we thought as normal and just second nature. Now it's almost like, what do you call it? It's like a prodigal son who lost his way and he comes back. Then he sees everything in a new light, and I think that's it. See everything in a new light, and stick to that, and that's probably the only thing we can do, and honestly, let's ensure that feeling of truly being grateful and truly being, seeing everything in a childlike eyes, not to sound fruity, but have that as real as possible for you, and I think that probably be the next evolution of human consciousness 2.0. That's probably what I would like to say.
Thank you so much, Badri. Yes, we will have that wonder in the eyes whenever we get back, particularly me just seeing the cricket ground all over again. And thanks so much for doing this. As always, learned a lot from you, gained
Yeah.
new perspective, and it is always so much fun just to talk to you about this on the record or
Yeah.
even off the record.
Yeah, absolutely. Same pleasure here, Nishad, and great questions. And I like your, the way of your questioning everything, and just your, how open and wanting to learn. Something that I have to, who I need to mention would be Natarajan Hariharan mentioned that. Like, there's one guy, Nishad, who's always open and always listening, and, a great kid on the block. This was like about 2-3 years ago. We were supposed to meet in Bombay. And at that point he mentioned that, so I'm like, yes. So, and you have never proven me wrong there. So so keep that young, alive. You already have a childlike spirit going, and added that you lost weight and become even younger, so just keep it going. Keep it going. So always good. Yeah, so good talking with you always. So
Thank you, Badri. And yes, we will be back on Niche Sports again with someone special to teach us a lot more so that we can learn and also rekindle our love for sport. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
thank you. All right, see you, man. Thank you. Bye.